What's up, collectors? Welcome back to Films by Color. I've got another Criterion haul video for you today, but it's not one of my hauls. It's actually a friend of the channel, Connor Nielsen. This is everything he picked up in the entire month of July. Some of you guys have been asking what he's been picking up, and obviously I wasn't able to do a haul video with him because we live on opposite sides of the country, but he did shoot some footage of him talking about his pickups, and he sent it over to me so I could share it with you guys. We did try to shoot a video call conversation talking about his picks together, but we had some technical difficulties. His internet was not cooperating, so he is going to be talking about these on his own. So I will stop talking now and turn it over to you, Connor. Take it away, buddy.
Thank you very much, DJ. Thanks for having me. I got a lot this sale, and actually more than just this sale. So before the sale started, I had actually been picking up a few of the 4Ks as they were coming out. These are movies that I generally really like or wanted to grab. I just couldn't wait. The first one being the Richard Linklater film Dazed and Confused on 4K. Now, this is a movie that I've actually seen many times, and I actually owned the Blu-ray for a while, and this is an upgrade, but only in the video department. The 4K remastering is all that you're really paying for here, but I do love this movie. Richard Linklater is like on my Mount Rushmore of filmmakers, and this was a 4K that when it was announced, I saw quite a bit of unease, more confusion of, well, it's a hangout movie. Like, a lot of people really like this movie, but why 4K? It's not exactly what you think of when you think of, you know, improved video quality. It's very naturalistic. Linklater's visual style, particularly in the 90s, was very naturalistic. However, actually, right after I was in Atlanta last July, I had flown, instead of going straight home, I went to LA. And while I was there, the night I landed actually, Quentin Tarantino's theater, the New Beverly, was showing a double feature of George Lucas's American Graffiti and Dazed and Confused. And the Dazed and Confused print they were showing was actually Tarantino's personal 35mm copy, and it was in pristine condition. It looked amazing. And it was shortly thereafter when it was announced that this would be coming to 4K, and I had a hunch that because I had seen that 35mm presentation, this was going to surprise a lot of people, and right I was, because this has been getting rave reviews in the video department, and I've actually watched this since then. I introduced the film to my little brother, yeah, it looks fantastic. Great, you know, uptick in obviously detail. The colors are quite, they add a warmth to it that I think is, and a nuance to it that's really hard to kind of tangibly talk about, but it does affect the experience I found. That being said, if you get a chance to watch this movie on 35mm, this looks amazing. That reel that I saw at the New Beverly, though, it still tops this, but this is very close to that. I love this movie. It's not even my favorite Linklater, but it is the one I've seen the most times. So moving from one early 90s classic from a beloved filmmaker to another early 90s classic from a beloved filmmaker, this is the 4K of Ridley Scott's Thelma and Louise. So every year I try doing a director's watch through as a New Year's resolution, and I started it in 2021. And that year I actually did Ridley Scott's filmography, which is the first time I ever watched Thelma and Louise. And I had the old, I think it's MGM, yeah, MGM Blu-ray, and it was fine. But this is a movie I like. It's not one that I love. I've only seen it once, so I might get to that place with it. But I think this is at the point in Ridley Scott's filmography, what he's doing here is a little bit unexpected. He's going for more of a naturalistic look, actually similar to a naturalism that you would see in a Linklater film, although it is very much Ridley Scott's hyper-composed lighting setups. But there's so much more exteriors and natural lighting sources, and a lot of but you know, he had, like, the way Scott typically does kind of gravitate towards colors, that is very much all over this, from the teal blue of the Thunderbird that they are driving to the orange brown of the desert. Yeah, there's very good eye for color in this. I have not had a chance to watch this 4K disc all the way through. I did sample it. I think it looks very good. It sounds excellent, but I don't know how to exactly compare that to the Blu-ray, because I did have to watch the Blu-ray quietly when I watched it a couple of years ago. But I really like Ridley Scott. I'm glad that he finally, like Steven Spielberg, he has a catalog filmography that studios like to just hoard. And so you don't really get a boutique label getting their hands on a Ridley Scott movie very often. Someone to Watch Over Me got a Shout Select. The Duelists, I think, is a Shout Factory, although that's since gone out of print. There's a few others here and there. Legend has the Arrow release. But finally, Ridley Scott, my boy, he's in the Criterion Collection, baby. So that's cool. I like this movie, and honestly, compared to all the other ones that could have been, I'm honestly surprised that they got their hands on, something that is this celebrated. I think beneath Blade Runner and Alien, this is probably the most recognizable Ridley Scott title, although some people might not even know it is a Scott movie. Anyways, glad I got that. Had to pick that up because I got to support Ridley. Now, if we can get a good year, either Blu-ray or any kind of HD release, that would be cool. But maybe Criterion shouldn't get that one. So the last of these titles that I got kind of day one, couldn't wait for the sale, was a recent Best Picture nominee, and that was Ruben Östlund's Triangle of Sadness. This won the Palme d'Or at the 2022 Cannes Film Festival, and I really like this movie. DJ actually recommended this to me very enthusiastically. One of my best friends also recommended it to me very enthusiastically, and I actually have a little bit of a story with this one. My mother really likes watching all the Best Picture nominees. It kind of gets her to watch whatever's in the conversation, and I like to watch all the Best Picture nominees as well. I used to try to watch everything that came out to theaters. Now I just don't have the time or money for that. I used to work at a movie theater, but every year I do try to watch something with my mom. There will be a Best Picture nominee that she might not want to go see by herself. And last year it was Licorice Pizza, which was a comedy nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay. And I had one of the best movie-going experiences ever with that. My mother and I laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And then the following year, which was this year, my mother and I went to go see a Best Picture nominee that she had not seen, I had not seen, and that was Triangle of Sadness, a comedy nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay. And we laughed and we laughed and we laughed. That screening was great because it was just full of people, and different things in the movie would just get different people in the audience. So there would be stuff that I just cackled like a madman at, and I feel like I was the only one laughing. But then there was other stuff that the guy 3 rows down over to the right was just bust a gut laughing. And my mom and I were laughing and we laughed and we laughed, and it was wonderful. So I'm always going to have that special experience with this. I think this is a pretty solid satire, very well made, but just above all, very funny, and I'm glad that it has a physical release, and I'm glad Criterion was able to get it. This year was like the first year in 5 where you can actually get a physical release of all the nominees, because All Quiet on the Western Front did get a 4K physical release that you could like get in stores, and yeah, Avatar, like it took them 6 months, but it came to disc, and this came very quickly. So Triangle of Sadness, I tried to get all the Best Picture nominees physically, and so when this was announced, I had to get it day one. But there's one more that I wanted to show before getting into the titles I got from the sale proper. This was actually a gift from a mutual friend of DJ and myself. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so I will just say he goes occasionally by the nickname Jerf. But he had sent me a message on Facebook wanting to know if I had wanted a DVD of 2 films by Yasujiro Ozu. Those are A Story of Floating Weeds and Floating Weeds. I have seen no Ozu, and I own an embarrassingly little amount of Ozu. I think I own Tokyo Story, and that's it. So this is an early Ozu. A Story of Floating Weeds is 34, and then a later one, because Floating Weeds is 59. I don't know anything about these movies. I think A Story of Floating Weeds is actually silent. I could be wrong there. 34 is pretty late for silent, but I remember looking up Ozu, and he was doing silent for a while, so I could be completely wrong. If it is silent, I'm very curious to know what silent Japanese cinema looks like. If it's, you know, influenced by kabuki theater, the way a lot of American silent cinema is, and European cinema is influenced by vaudeville. But yeah, I need to catch up on my Ozu. So when Jerf, when you, I couldn't pass up this opportunity. So thank you so much. And it actually came in the mail the day the sale began. So that's a cool addition. This is a DVD, the only way this is available. All right, now we are getting into the sale proper at long last. The first title I picked up, this is just gonna be something that DJ's gonna make fun of me because I double dipped, and I got the recently released 4K release of Time Bandits, to the Terry Gilliam film. Look at that wonderful lenticular cover. It was sort of a bit of a thing for a while that DJ and I were trying to get the out-of-print Blu-ray with the lenticular cover of this title, and then they released a 4K, and then all of a sudden the lenticular cover's back in print, and that Blu-ray is worth nothing. A little bit of the fear of the out-of-print hunters. The reason DJ is probably going to give me grief about this is I've never seen Time Bandits. I already own Time Bandits, although I did get it at a very reduced price. As you can see, I have kept this wrapped, and there's a reason for that. I am going to be watching the Blu-ray copy that I've had for a little over a year now, and if I love the movie or if I really like it and I want to have the 4K, I will just hold on to the 4K and then sell the Blu-ray. But this is one of the only instances of double dipping that I did this month, but that is Time Bandits. I am about to get my feet wet with Terry Gilliam. Every time a sale at Barnes & Noble comes along, I do try to grab things from filmmakers with large bodies of work that I know I'm going to want to dive into, and Akira Kurosawa is no different. Every year I try to grab at least one Kurosawa, I guess twice a year because there is the November sale usually. I just say that because I don't want to jinx it. But this is when I was looking for last year and I could not find, and I every time I'm looking for this movie, I can't find it. But this was the year, I think it was the first day of the sale, I was like, all right, there it is. The Hidden Fortress. We're grabbing it, we're doing it. It's an early spy number, 116. Obviously this is famous for, at least in the States, for being a major influence on the original Star Wars, particularly the first act of the original Star Wars with R2-D2 and C-3PO and the Princess Leia, kind of sending these kind of comedic characters on a mission. But I mean, I just want to see the Kurosawa of it, right? Like, because I've not seen a whole lot of Kurosawa. I finally got my feet wet with him. But yeah, this is 2 hours, 20 minutes. I'm expecting a pretty cool feudal Japan epic. and don't really know too much about the plot. So I'm excited. I really like Kurosawa, what I've seen from him thus far, and this one is a fan favorite. Okay, next up, I had to get it because it is the greatest film that's ever been made. That is Jean Dielman, 23, Kaidu Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles. I said that very American, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, but I don't care. So this is Spy Number 484. I kind of know the pitch of this movie. It is 3 hours, 3 hours and 20 minutes. And it's about a woman, it is largely concerned with a woman cleaning her apartment. This is a sort of landmark achievement in feminist filmmaking. Obviously, Chantal Akerman is a woman who directed this. It came out in 1975, so a bit of progression, at least on the scene of art house filmmaking. But, you know, it just got voted by Sight and Sound as the #1 movie ever. And so, you know, got to pick that up for the collection. I will absolutely be watching it sometime in the next 10 years. One of the filmmakers that has sort of blown up a little bit in the last 10 years is Barry Jenkins. His sophomore effort, Moonlight, won Best Picture famously over La La Land. And in the meantime, he hasn't really made another film. He did a TV miniseries, I believe, for Amazon, and he has signed up to direct the Godfather 2 sequel of the live-action 2019 Lion King movie, which just sounds like a joke. It sounds like a meme. I won't believe that till I see it. But his first film came out actually 8 years before Moonlight, and that is Medicine for Melancholy. This is a Blu-ray that was released just before the sale started, and I knew I wanted to pick this up because a lot of people speak very highly of this. I like Moonlight. I've only seen it once. I do want to see it again, and just listening to Barry Jenkins talk about filmmaking, just talk about his love of cinema, just talking about his influences. I could listen to the guy talk all day. So a very short movie. It is 88 minutes, and really nice artwork and design for this release. I really like the sort of monochromatic blue scale on a white of this release. So when this was announced, it made my ears perk up. It's been a movie I've been curious about for some time, and I had to get it for the availability. Moving on with more Terry Gilliam, this is his 1988 fantasy adventure film, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I don't know much about this movie. I know it's his love letter to Carol Zeman. I, of course, know this because I am friends with DJ, and I don't know. I've heard about this movie since I was in high school. I did not know really who Baron Munchausen was. I did not know about the Carol Zeman movie back then. I didn't even really know who Terry Gilliam was. But I just remember seeing, for whatever reason, the thumbnail for the Siskel and Ebert review of this movie all the time. So like I was aware of it, and now it's on Criterion. But this is a 4K. I've been cooling off on getting all the 4Ks. That was kind of like a goal I had at one point, and so I don't know, maybe that was part of the impulse of getting this, but I am interested in it. I still have not gotten my feet wet with Terry Gilliam, so this is kind of like what we call prep action, right? So if I like Terry Gilliam, bam, I got this one on the shelf. If I don't, I still got it on the shelf. I'll probably watch it, but I don't know if I'll keep it. But I can always sell it. But yeah, I am interested in this because it seems, very imaginative. And if nothing else, I'm sure I'll respect the craft of it. Again, I really like the design on this release. I like the disc art, and then I really like the pamphlet that comes with it because, you know, this is the sort of leaflet that comes, and then you turn it sideways, and then his hat gets enlarged, and then it becomes the clouds, and then there is him riding the cannonball, etc. I really like the sort of dreamy nature of that artwork, and so I don't know, something about the packaging and the way they're selling this it just seemed like it would appeal to me in a kind of like a quirky, imaginative way. So anyways, I grabbed that just kind of as like a, I don't know, a safe bet. I'm betting on this one. For this next one, I was actually in the store and I had put out a question to a Discord that I'm in. I just said, all right, guys, what do I get? Do I get X, Y, or Z? And by a pretty sizable amount of votes, they had said, you gotta get Michael Mann's Thief, starring James Caan. Now, this is Michael Mann's first film. I've been wanting to get my hands on this because actually my brother, before he moved away, picked this up. So this has been on my shelf for some time, but then he moved to Los Angeles and took it with him. And now I got a thief-shaped hole on my shelf. So I know I wanted to pick it up to kind of, posterity, replace it. But Michael Mann is a filmmaker I'm very interested in. He has a major influence on a lot of those 90s Gen X filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan. A lot of people really like Michael Mann. And this was one of those directorial debuts that just blew everyone away and was like immediately like the 80s style had sort of been defined to some degree. It was, different than what had kind of been around in the new Hollywood era. So I'm excited to check that out. I really like James Caan. And what little I've seen of Michael Mann, I typically like. I really liked Last of the Mohicans. Black Hat is probably the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. But, it's been almost 10 years since I've seen it. Maybe I'll feel differently going through his films, but had to get Thief. Another filmmaker that I want to make sure to grab a little bit of every time I go is Andrei Tarkovsky. He has actually a pretty small filmography. I think he only made 7 feature films, 5 of which in the Soviet Union, and I think I own 3 of them, and I had to get a 4th one. And I believe the 5 that he made at the Soviet Union are the 5 that are in the Criterion collection, and then the 2 he made in Sweden, I believe, are Kino releases. But I'll get those at some point. But I have Solaris, I have Andrei Rublev, which is like the best movie ever, and then I have Ivan's Childhood. So between Mirror or Stalker, I went with my buddy DJ's instinct on this, and I got Stalker. It is spine number 888. I imagine there's some kind of fun being had with the 3 8s there. I don't know. I've seen Ivan's Childhood. I think it's quite good. I think Andrei Rublev is one of the 10 greatest films ever. It's incredible. I've not been able to stop thinking about it. I do want to see Solaris at some point, but this is DJ's favorite that he has seen. So I'm trusting you, DJ. But I mean, after Andrei Rublev, this guy kind of has my heart a little bit. So even if it's not going to get me the same way that one did, I'll probably have no problem paying attention, seeking out what it means, because what I've seen has yielded a lot of rewarding thought, what I've seen from Tarkovsky. Keeping it with Terry Gilliam on 4K, The Fisher King. So this is a movie that even if I wasn't gonna just pick up the 4Ks I don't own on Blu-ray already, I probably would have gotten this eventually. Even if I'm not a huge, I say I'm not a huge Terry Gilliam fan. I've not seen any of his work, so that's not a slight against him. But the premise of this is interesting to me. I actually have a friend who had come up with a concept that was strikingly similar to this, and so I thought it was a really cool concept. And then I heard about The Fisher King, and I said, buddy, you might want to look into this movie, The Fisher King. I don't think he has yet, and I have not either, so I don't know how similar they actually are to one another. But, Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, I hear just a lot of regular people who, were, alive and of movie-going age in the early 90s talking about this as a really solid film that, they really like. So I'm curious about it. I'll check it out. And then speaking of movies that I don't know anything about really, this one is interesting to me because I was just doing what I do and looking up films that were nominated for Oscars. And in the 1971 Academy Awards, there was this movie that was all over. It was nominated for Best Director. I think it won Best Leading Actress. I'm sure it was up for a screenplay nomination, but it was not nominated for picture. And I was just on a whim looking it up, and I saw that Criterion had a Blu-ray of it, so I added it to my list, and that is Ken Russell's Women in Love. I don't know anything about this movie. However, I will say that Ken Russell is a filmmaker that is intriguing to me. I was listening to the film critic Mark Kermode talk about actually Space Jam 2 of all movies, and how the weird people that are like dressed up in cheap costumes that are like advertising HBO Max on the sidelines of the basketball game in that movie. There were like some nuns, and apparently those are from the Ken Russell film The Devils. And Mark Kermode is a part of, like, I guess he is or was a part of the BFI when they oversaw the restoration of the director's cut of The Devils. The Devils is famously a movie that was cut down, and a chopped up, bastardized version was released to theaters. But the BFI had reconstructed this director's cut of The Devils, and then Warner Brothers said, we have no interest in releasing this. So Mark Kermode was a little salty about that. They said, we won't release The Devils, but we will put iconography from The Devils in the background of Space Jam 2 in order to, advertise a streaming service. And the great irony, I think, was that The Devils wasn't even on HBO Max at the time. So whatever. The Devils is not Women in Love, but Ken Russell is a filmmaker that does sound like he was maybe the right guy in the wrong place. He seems like he was really trying to do cool things, and it was maybe just a little too early, a little bit before the new Hollywood movement. He's a filmmaker I'm interested in, and maybe everything I've just said doesn't actually apply to him. But that's the perception I have before checking out his stuff. And I think I'm going to start here. Really cool artwork, by the way. So the next one is one that I've been thinking about grabbing for some time. Earlier I had mentioned I like to get all of the Academy Award for Best Picture nominees on Blu-ray if I can get them, and I've also been trying to get the AFI Top 10 each year, although that's more of a recent thing. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with that. However, in the year 2020, which, because it's like it's the year with no movies, it kind of interests me. And this was not nominated for Best Picture, although Regina King was the first announcer at that year's Oscars, and this was nominated for plenty of Oscars. It was on the AFI Top 10, and that is Regina King's directorial debut, One Night in Miami. This is a movie I've actually seen before. I think it's okay. I do want to see it again. The reason to watch this is Kingsley Ben-Adir as Malcolm X. I think he's great. And then, of course, Leslie Odom Jr. is always great. He plays Sam Cooke. The premise of this movie is you have these four pillars of black entertainment or black culture in the 60s. So you have Malcolm X, you have Muhammad Ali, you have Jim Brown, and you have Sam Cooke. And it sort of imagines a night where they all hung out at this one hotel together and had this conversation. And there's a lot of interesting discussions, particularly between Malcolm X and Sam Cooke, because Malcolm X wants more explicit, radical rhetoric coming from the mouth of someone like Sam Cooke, who can really speak to mainstream America, and really, But Sam Cooke doesn't really want to do that. That to me is the most interesting stuff in the movie. It's based on a stage play, and I don't think that that's inherently a bad thing, but I do think that Regina King's direction is not very cinematic in a lot of places, and there is that kind of classic, all right, let's go to the roof. And then when they get to the roof, it's like the blocking is very similar to when they're in their room, and there's they didn't really need to go to a roof, but they're like, well, it's a movie, we might as well shake up the location since we can. And I don't know, like there is this kind of this brown, like something about like digital streaming movies that are like period pieces. Like the Trial of the Chicago 7 has like this similar look to this movie. I'm not crazy about that look, but it's competently made. And I do want to see it again. It's pretty good, and it's cool that it got a physical release. All right, so it was July 2023, and it was Criterion Collection sale time. So because I'm anybody who was anybody was getting After Hours. Like, who didn't get After Hours? This is a Scorsese movie that I've not seen, but I really want to. Ever since I was in high school and I heard the premise. I've always kind of been a sucker for One Crazy Night movies, and this is sort of like the ultimate One Crazy Night movie, so I had to get it. DJ, you've seen it. You really like this. So now I gotta see it, and then we gotta talk about it. Martin Scorsese, After Hours. Every sale, I try to get a box set. And for some time, like last, at the flash sale, I got the Agnes Varda set, and I was all geared up, you know, Agnes Varda, she was married to Jacques Demy. I was all geared up to get that Jacques Demy set. But then they made a little announcement, and I couldn't not grab it because the Renowned Westerns, 5 films directed by Bud Betticher, starring Randolph Scott. I just read the description of this, and it sounded like some executives had a meeting, and they said, we need to make a product that would appeal exclusively to Connor Nielsen. And I mean, come on. 5 briskly entertaining, vividly performed westerns made by Bud Betticher and strapping star Randolph Scott in the second half of the 1950s transcend their B-movie origins to become rich, unexpectedly profound explorations of loyalty, greed, honor, and revenge. Like, come on. Like, revisionist western, B-movie trappings that it's transcending. Yes, please. And it's a 4K. UHD thing, and you got that Technicolor, oh, yes, please. I love it. Give it all to me. So I just, on a whim, I've never heard of any of these, and so I had to get it. I'm really excited. I think I might just, spend Labor Day weekend watching these movies. I think I'm going to do that. This is a very beautiful set, too. It is 3 4K discs and then 3 Blu-rays. All of the movies are divided onto the 3 4K discs, and then also the regular HD versions are on two of the Blu-ray discs, and then that 3rd Blu-ray disc is the supplements. So excited to dig into this. Going on with the 4Ks, this is a recent 4K release, and it is Jean Renoir's The Rules of the Game. This is a movie that I've been meaning to pick up on Blu-ray for a long time. I've been hearing about that movie since high school. I don't know anything about it actually, but I do know it's widely celebrated, and I really like the art on the Blu-ray release. But then when they announced a 4K, I was like, whew, got no buyer's remorse because I don't own it, and I will grab the 4K. I will say though, this booklet, holy smokes, it's huge. So I am sure there's going to be plenty of bonus material to dig into with this. Although I said I don't have any buyer's remorse, I can't believe I'm that guy. They have different artwork for the 4K than they do for the Blu-ray, and I have considered just getting the Blu-ray for the art, and I'm not going to, but I have considered it. It gets mentioned pretty regularly, like almost, I feel like every time I'm on the channel, that last August, I watched through the entire Ingmar Bergman's cinema set with my twin brother, and we went through that set at a rate of 1 disc a day, which is heavy, not the least of which because I had to watch all of Scenes from a Marriage, the miniseries, in one day, and then the next day watch the theatrical cut of Scenes from a Marriage, along with the sequel Saraband. Low-key, probably one of the most deranged and insane films I've ever seen in my life, Saraband is. But Scenes from a Marriage, I don't have the Ingmar Bergman cinema set, that is my brother's, and I owned a decent amount of his films independently before watching through those. And so while it might be cheaper to grab the set, it's like I've already invested enough in these individual releases, and a lot of the best stuff does have an individual release anyways. I wanted to grab this regardless because Scenes from a Marriage is so good. This is a $50 Criterion because this includes the original 1973 television version, which is 6 episodes, and then the edited for US theaters theatrical cut, which is 3 hours long. The theatrical cut is okay. It's still Scenes from a Marriage, but the episodic structure is just inevitable. It's very starty-stoppy, and it does, I think, remove a lot of the deepest cutting stuff. That 4th episode does feel gutted in a way that I don't think I could say about the rest of them. But the television miniseries of this is like essential. It is so mature and challenging about subject matter that is very easy to be principled and judgy about. And I don't know, something about what Bergman was able to do here really helped me through a lot of difficult stuff that I've had hangups about when it just comes to relationships. The performances here are incredible. The direction is incredibly subtle, but the performances, particularly Liv Ullmann, I don't want to just feel like I'm just throwing out a bunch of hyperbole. Liv Ullmann in Scenes from a Marriage gives probably my favorite performance maybe ever. It's so good. It's so good. You look at her character, Marianne, at the beginning of this television miniseries versus who she is at the end. It feels like you're looking at 2 different people, and there's not a lot of makeup. It's all her. She's so good. It is this masterful stuff. And obviously Erland Josephson is excellent too. They're both Bergman regulars. If you're a fan of the Before trilogy, I actually think the 3rd one, Before Midnight, is Delpy, Hawk, and Linklater actually kind of doing their version of this. I think this is better, but if you like Before Midnight, maybe check it out. It's really good. Alas, we return to 4K titles that I was going to pick up a Blu-ray of and then never did, and then announced a 4K, and I'm like, great, I don't have buyer's remorse. Because I know DJ has buyer's remorse about this one. Wings of Desire. This is Wim Wenders, 1987. I've always wanted to watch this. Known about it for years. 4K came out. Finally picked it up. Seems really cool. So I'm going to watch it. I've never seen a Wim Wenders film. So Wings of Desire does kind of feel like one of those essential criterions. I don't know if it's in the first 5 that you give someone your 8.5s or your 7th seals, but it's probably in the first 20 or maybe 15 that that I think about anyways when I think about Criterion. Okay, next up is a very recent 4K release. Last year I had grabbed Carl Franklin's Devil in a Blue Dress, and I said this was his kind of directorial follow-up that was maybe seen as a little underwhelming, a little bit of a disappointment because that movie it's following up is so kind of well received and kind of really liked by the audience that was there to receive it. That first earlier movie that I was talking about just came out this year. 1 year later, it's One False Move. This is actually co-written by Billy Bob Thornton, believe it or not. But it's directed by Carl Franklin. A really great cast. Bill Paxton, Cinda Williams, Billy Bob Thornton, Michael Beach. I don't know, this just seems like a really cool movie. I'm interested in Carl Franklin. It's just interesting how last year we had a 4K release for a Martin Scorsese film, Raging Bull, and then we also had a 4K release of a Carl Franklin film, Devil in a Blue Dress. And then this year, like those same two filmmakers in the same month, July, get 4K releases of movies, After Hours and One False Move. So I'm probably going to do a double feature of One False Move and Devil in a Blue Dress, maybe in like September or October. Well, October belongs to Giallo for me this year, so maybe not. But I do want to watch those two movies in like a double feature pretty soon. They seem pretty cool. So July is seen as, you know, the sale month, right, for Criterion. But for myself, July 2023 will always hold that special place in my heart as Barbenheimer. I was very much an early adopter of Barbenheimer. I'm surprised it became like a whole thing. But I actually went down to LA to visit my twin brother. It's the first time I got to go visit him since he moved. And then one of my best friends also lives down there. And the three of us all went to go see Barbie and Oppenheimer. I was on Team Barbie going in. Walking out, I was actually Team Oppenheimer. They're both very good. But Oppenheimer was really, really stinking good. But while I was down there, my brother and I actually went to the Barnes & Noble at The Grove, which is actually 3 stories. The Grove is really, really snazzy shopping center, and it was a really cool place. And actually, we couldn't find the Criterion section for a little while. We ended up going up in circles, and at first we thought like there was just this one end cap. We're like, is this it? And then we turned a corner, and we found it. Don't you worry. But I had to grab a couple of things while I was there. The first one I grabbed was Petite Maman. This is the directorial follow-up to Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which I grabbed last July. This is from the same filmmaker as that, which I still have not seen. I'm sure I'll like it when I finally watch it. Something about it just doesn't incentivize me to want to watch it, even though like all the stills I see from it look amazing. Friends of mine tell me it's great all the time. But the premise of Petite Maman really intrigues me. It's kind of funny where I heard the title Petite Maman. I'm like, what's that? And then someone was really trying to sell me on it, and they ended up telling me kind of about the premise, and it was more than I kind of wish I knew. But then the catch-22 of that is they didn't tell me that I probably wouldn't be as eager to watch this as I am. So I do want to watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire so that I can then watch Petite Maman. This sounds kind of like a Spike Jonze take on like a Guillermo del Toro fable. It's so cool sounding, and it sounds very like emotionally rich. So I really like the artwork here. I like the colors. It's short, 73 minutes. We like that. And it even comes with a bonus feature that is an entire other film, and that is the 2016 stop-motion animated film, My Life as a Zucchini, which I did not see. So great. 2 for the price of 1. The other title that I grabbed while I was at The Grove, Barnes & Noble down in Los Angeles, was the Jean Cocteau film Orpheus. So this is a part of Jean Cocteau's Orphic trilogy. He did The Blood of a Poet, and then he did this, and then he did Testament of Orpheus. And so I don't know if it's like a thematic trilogy or if it is like there's a story going through all 3 of them. The first and third film in this trilogy are not in print at Criterion. Only the second one, Orpheus, is. The Orphic trilogy was a box set that is on DVD. That was on DVD that's since gone out of print. But I saw Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast. That was actually the first Criterion Corner that DJ and I did discussing Criterion films. He really likes that movie. I liked it the first time I watched it, and then I ended up watching it with my brother, actually, and I really liked it a lot. I was in like the perfect mood to check it out. One of the greatest final shots just ever. Oh, it's beautiful. So I want to see more of Cocteau's work, and this seems like another good place to start. I'll probably watch the first one and then on Max, and then watch this one, and then watch the third one on Max as well, since that's the only way I can get my hands on it readily right now. But anyways, those were the things I got at The Grove, a really nice store. I look forward to going there again. And lastly, speaking of my brother Spencer, these last 2 are kind of like the Spencer Nielsen tribute picks. So my brother loves going to Quentin Tarantino's New Beverly Cinema, and while he was there, he watched the Michael Curtiz film Mildred Pierce. So right now, he doesn't have a 4K player, so I actually owned the Criterion Blu-ray of Mildred Pierce, and I flew it on down to him and delivered it to him, and Criterion actually just put out a 4K of it, and I made sure to grab the 4K. My brother loved this movie. He said I would really like it too, so I'm gonna check it out very soon. This one's for you, Spencer. And then speaking of New Beverly, while I was there, we did go to the New Beverly to actually watch the midnight screening of The Hateful Eight, the eighth film that Quentin Tarantino directed. It was a 35 millimeter print, actually apparently the only 35 millimeter print of the Roadshow version. Usually I think that was sent out as a 70 millimeter print, but this was a 35 millimeter print. It looked wonderful, great presentation. But while I was there, so the New Beverly does have trailers, but what they usually do is, they have a schedule of movies that they're going to be showing, and when you go there, they will be showing you these classic trailers for movies that they will be showing sometime that month. However, before The Hateful Eight, they played trailers for films that influenced The Hateful Eight. I was planning on grabbing a Robert Altman film this year at the sale, but I didn't know which one to get. Do I get Three Women? Do I get Shortcuts? Do I get The Player? I know DJ sure likes The Player, and he did finally watch Nashville, so I felt like I owed it to him. But then the New Beverly Cinema had a trailer for McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which is also in the Criterion Collection. It is Robert Altman, and I had no idea it was an influence. I knew the thing was an influence. I knew, I think, is it Rio Bravo? One of those Rio movies with that Howard Hawks did. It might be Rio Bravo. I know Tarantino talks a lot about that, but I didn't know McCabe and Mrs. Miller. This is Altman's follow-up to MASH, a movie I don't really like, but actually I think this had a presence at the same Academy Awards that Women in Love did, but this was also not nominated for Best Picture. But it's Warren Beatty, Julie Christie, new Hollywood revisionist Western. Very interested to check this out, especially considering this takes place in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I live. So I'm excited to check this out. And so the Spencer Nielsen tribute, New Beverly, kind of double feature to wrap things up. I wanted to be sure to grab those movies before the sale was over. So anyways, that's what I got. Whew, it was a great sale, and thank you again so much for having me, DJ. Until next time.
Thank you so much, buddy, for recording that video and sharing your pickups with us. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on all those films when you get around to seeing them. This was going to be the last sale haul video of the July sale. I was going to close with Connor's video, but Grace and I did make it to one more Barnes & Noble, and we each picked up 3 more titles each. So we are going to be discussing those in a upcoming video, the final Criterion July sale haul video of the month. So stay tuned for that video. I'll be recording that with her tomorrow and editing it and getting it up as soon as possible. Thank you guys so much for the response to all of the sale haul videos this month. It's been a great time. I've loved talking with all of you guys. There's one more. We're almost done, and I'll talk to you guys down in the comments below. Make sure you let Connor know what you think of his picks, and I'll be back again with another video real soon.